So this is the Office of Undergraduate Research, and which is related to the topic we are sharing today. Our mission, as you all know, is to advance students' research capability and excellence. And also we seek to, find funds internally and externally. So our students can have research experience with the professors who are mentors. And also we facilitate student and faculty interdisciplinary collaborations, which most of us have been doing. Next slide. But specifically, what we do involve one, source for internal and external fund. For example, for this academic year, we source fund internally from the HR, which is the Earn and Learn program. Many of us faculty, we are engaged in this. We are engaging like 35 students this academic year in the faculty mentored research activities for our students. And also we place students with mentors. So our office does all the recruiting, both recruitment of faculty and students that are engaged in research. And then next, we also organize research-related activities throughout the year. Our office does that. There are different ones that, many of us, you receive emails constantly, almost every week from me, to let you know that if you want to participate in any of the research activities that involve students. Also, we provide training on research process. This, we collaborate with different departments, different colleges to be able to provide this service. Also, we support student participation in conferences. For example, the local conference of Symposium Research Week, the regional symposium, like the Tamus Pathways, and also there is a state undergraduate research that is always done every year at the capital in Austin. So our office also, supports students and provides services for such. Then we also organize events for research internship. This one we collaborate with the career office on campus. And also we stage the undergraduate research information session to be able to provide these services, because we invite, many institutions and companies and organizations to come to this session so that our students can be able to apply for internship or real programs in other campuses. Next. So today, like I said, our topic is, faculty mentorship for undergraduate research. Why are we training in this? We assume that all of us will know that, but we're trying to remind us about, one, that who is a mentor? I know many of us have questions about this, and I'll give examples as we go on. Then we want to discuss the conceptual framework of mentoring, which is very important. We get all this information from the National Organization of Council for Undergraduate Research, which many institutions all over the country are members. Personally, I'm a member. I've not gotten many faculty members to become members, but we'll work on that. Then the last thing we want to discuss, it will be like interaction among each other to see how mentoring can be effective. Next slide. Okay, now, so who is a mentor? Generally, we know that mentors are trainers, they are guidance, they are professional role models. But we are trying to tailor this specifically to undergraduate research. So a mentor will be a full-time faculty or staff in the university. Then we assume or would know that, you know, they are expertise in research. Also, we expect that, you know, they will have terminal degree of PhD, MD, and all that. I have some mentors that they have master's degree, which is still okay, because later on you see that other type of, mentors with maybe graduate or postgraduate status can also be a mentor. Tenure or tenure seeking faculty and all full-time research staff can also be a mentor to our students. Then it can, you know, the status can be instructors, lecturers, or adjunct faculty. In case of adjunct faculty, it depends on the consent of the departmental chair, because some colleges, it depends on how stable the adjunct faculty could be. So that one has to be with the consent of the department. Next. And of course, you know, a mentor can also be a graduate student or postgraduate student. And this also depends on the consent of their research advisor. Okay, now, when we get into the conceptual framework of mentoring, there are three categories generally that we look at. And the three categories have to interact in such a way that you will make the mentorship effective. On my left side, you could see that, you know, we have the three categories, which is the intent. Why are we, you know, doing this faculty mentoring? At the lowest level, you will see that, you know, you provide psychological development to the students. And that's kind of something like a role model, okay? Then the second category has to do with impacting the professional development or advising in such a way that, you know, they'll be able to develop professionally as you engage them in research. And of course, the last category, which is the career advancement and brokering. We call this one brokering. Especially these days that we are trying to develop as a research institution, that last category is very important. When the mentoring is effective, you will see the result, because our student will graduate either to graduate school or to a world of work and in the area of doing research. And we have many organizations that have the research department these days. Looking at the middle of the pyramid, this pyramid shows how, you know, the mentorship should be. We see that at the lowest level, you serve as the role model. You know, the peer power can be of that, and the supporter. For example, the role model is the faculty member, the peer is the graduate student or the postgraduate, and also we have the supporter. We in our department, we being the supporter, especially the Office of Undergraduate Research. So we are trying to provide the psychological development and serving as a role model to the student. Then we see the teacher or coach. You know, some students, they project may come up from the class that the teacher is teaching. So this level is very important also. And then you be counselor, advisor, or guide. That's when you are now being developing their, you know, career, developing them professionally. In different ways, you'll be counseling them, like you can write letter of recommendation for them to have different experiences outside the campus. You advise them on what to do and you guide them. And then that extends to, you know, you sponsor or, you know, benchmark their work. When you sponsor their work, those of us that we have, we have grants. Many of the faculty members that have grants, they employed undergraduate research. In this case, you are really developing them professionally. And then, of course, when you move on to the patron or the protector, you find out that you are really helping them to develop their career goals. At this level, you can go with them to conferences, you can help them to make networking and all that. And of course, the top of the pyramid or the hierarchy, you are an effective mentor. So with that in mind, the framework can be further explained that, the professor and the mentor must, assume the mentoring intent and then the involvement through all the levels. The levels are from 1 to 6. So you see that as you raise them from the bottom level of psychological, development, you use all these roles in between from level 1 to level 6 to make everything effective. So following this framework has worked for so many institutions. And so if you need further explanation on this, I interact with many faculty members, so you can ask questions later on. Next. Okay. How can mentoring be effective? These are questions that many of us is like a concern to us, because we come across different behavior, different instances that come up when we are mentoring students. In the first place, you have to make sure that you establish a clear expectations about your the work schedule. This one is very important. Also, you make sure that you explain and establish what their responsibilities will be. And also, you also need to have two-way communication. These 3 areas are very important to establish right from the beginning when you start to mentor the students. But to be able to achieve this, there are certain questions, to consider. Next. Certain questions to consider doing this. This is where I would like each of us or some of us to pitch in. I have some questions that you need to ask students right from the beginning when you are establishing clear expectations. For example, you need to ask, what does the mentor expect of the student? You need to establish that. You need to establish what does the student, expect of the mentor. How many hours a week will the student be working? What is the best way for the student to contact the mentor, whether it's through email, through telephone, through, with social media or what? Should the student do anything to prepare for, any kind of meeting? And then when should the student get help from their, graduate student and all that? Should the student send the mentor weekly email updates? I know that many of us will have something to say on all these, questions I'm raising. So what information should be included, in all these updates that you get from the student? So now I want us to interact a little bit on this. What are the kind of questions? Maybe as you ask your question, you can be writing it down in the chat. But at the same time, I want us to contribute. If anyone can unmute and contribute to this. What are other questions that we need to ask in order to establish and be clear right from the beginning of mentoring a student? Anyone? Okay.
Okay. For me, I guess I would want to find out why the student is carrying out a particular research as to just how. So we understand how is, the process, the how, and what the research is about, but I want to understand why the relationship between the student and the research he or she has decided to take on.
Okay. Why the student is participating in the research? Like I explained in the previous slide, the three categories. The why of doing this mentoring and research is to be able to develop the student psychologically, professionally, and career-wise. Secondly, we in Prairie View A&M University, we are developing to become a research institution. Right now, I think we are in tier 3. We are trying to move into tier 2 and then tier 1. And to do this, to get this, we have to involve both students and professors or researchers in the institution. Did I answer your question?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. From this discussion and knowing what kind of question you need to ask in order to establish clear expectations, I have some questions if you don't have. So some of our faculty members that have mentored students, I know you are in the meeting. Can I ask you this question? How easy was it for you to establish the work schedule or the responsibility for the student? Anyone? Let me see if any of my mentor is there.
Dr. Avalaji, this is April Lovelady. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So I have a couple of students. Of course, students' schedules change from semester to semester. Mm-hmm. And I think I've been very fortunate. I have had students who know that my primary research days are Tuesday, Thursday, and they do their best to actually build their schedules around doing research on Tuesday, Thursdays.
Okay.
So I've been very lucky. I did have a couple of students who sort of came and went, and that's to be expected. And a lot of times it was because of their schedule. They couldn't make their schedule fit my research schedule. But I did have students, I have students who have been with me now for a couple of semesters, and they know that research days for me are Tuesday, Thursdays, and build their schedules around those days. So for me, I can say that I've had a good experience with the students who are genuinely interested in the research.
Good. Any other person? Okay, let me just give you an example from the 35 students that we worked with this semester. A number of students came to my office to complain because of their class schedule. They are not able to go to the research something, and if they don't go, and the faculty has to sign their timesheet, that's when they now have problem that I'm not getting paid. It's because of my class schedule and all that. So I kept on advising them and also letting the professor know that they need to work it out between themselves, and that's why that framework is like once you get that going, and then you establish you have clear expectations right from the beginning. It won't be like you get to the middle of the semester and then when the student is not paid, then it will be a problem. We had to deal with a number of those this past semester. And also with this epidemic, there was a lot of complaint about that. So that's why it's very important to make your mentoring effective right from day one. You need to clear up work schedule, responsibilities, and how you will be communicating with each other. Okay, we move to the next. Secondly, you make the steps of research process very explicit. This is necessary so that we will be able to find out what the background knowledge and skills the student have. because this can create significant obstacle for students. So I have some tips that you can look into or consider for this section. So first, you identify student background, knowledge, and skills. There are many freshmen, maybe they've had experience, especially those that went to community college, that they would really want to get on doing research once they get into this into our school. And there are some freshmen that are really, really interested in doing research. So that's why it's very important for you to identify their background, knowledge and information. And there are some that doesn't. So you make a timeline of milestone to reach. This has created some problems also with our experience. So it's very important, so it won't create obstacles later on in the mentorship relationship. Make a timeline with the students so that you'll be able to understand and be able to abide with the timeline and the objective or the goal that they need to achieve within that frame timeline. Then talk about required skills and knowledge. Yeah, you might identify their background, knowledge, and skills, but what are your own skills and knowledge that you require of them? So you need to talk about that with the students also. Then first, we will assess students' beginning skills level and knowledge. Yeah, it's one thing to identify, it's another thing to assess it. And the way you can assess it, depends on, as a professor, you know how you can see whether this student really know what he's doing or not, or has these skills or not. Then identify where student might need instruction, before engaging in research or mentoring. Next. Okay. So as to maintain that relationship in the framework, you need to let students also, write what they wish to know, so that, it will be two-way communication. It won't be that the mentor is just handing what he or she wants the student to provide for him. Let students also write what they expect to know, so that both of you will now work it out. Then we need to expose students to the full research process. For example, some students, like when we are trying to do a symposium, some students will just submit abstracts and their professor will not know, their mentor will not know, until the mentor just see that, what is going on here. We have many professors that came up, is like, I did not know when this student wrote this. So if you make the research process explicit, they are involved, the students are involved, you expose them right from the beginning, there won't be such issues. Then have students read key articles or books about the study, because some of them, they just say, oh, they go to the lab, they just stay there, they don't know what to do. So in a way, mentoring the students has to be two ways, not just getting students involved. Then ask students to brainstorm about the next step, especially those of us that we have more than one student that we mentor, and they are working on the same project. They should be able to think and come up with, next step to take in their research process. Okay. Any comments, any question, to discuss on this from our experiences? Is Dr. Samuel there? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Emmanuel Dada, can I say something?
Okay.
Yes. My greatest concern is I don't have lab, so my students they do theoretical work for me. It's very difficult to monitor how many hours they actually put. What is your recommendation on how to monitor them for the result? Because it's not a lab work. If it's a lab work, I can ask them to stay in the lab. I can know when they are there, when they are off. But with theoretical research, I give them assignments. I ask them to put time. How do I really quantify and be assured the number of hours they said they put in?
Okay, like we said earlier, you know, make a timeline and the milestone of the student should reach. Then when you let students write, you know, what they want to learn, and then you assign what they should also, what you required of them, you assign it to them. And you let them do literature search, you let them do like writing the abstracts themselves, and you let them do the methodology. You've explained all those to them. You've exposed them to the full research process. And then from there, you assign, you know, what they should do within certain timeline. Did that help you?
No, that does not answer my question. They do all that. Since
Okay.
I'm going to sign their timesheet and they tell me they spend 3 hours, how do I know that?
But the timeline, the kind of work you give to them, you see whether it's 3 hours or 2 hours that they spent in doing that. That's where the timeline comes in. You have to allocate time for the assignment or the tasks that they need to complete.
All right, maybe.
And then, for example, with the program that we are on, the students are allowed to put in 20 hours per week. Mm-hmm. And that on the average, that's like 4 hours per day from Monday to Friday, depending on how many days that you work. You just, you know, allow them to have that 20 hours per week.
Okay, thank you.
This is Susan Fraser-Kwasi. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
So I want to elaborate on what Professor Dada was saying. We have a situation like that where we have both graduate and undergraduate students who are working remotely. So we assign a task that we assume so many hours will be attributed to that task, and every week they have to give a report. So less concerned about the exact number of hours per se, because you can't control that if they're working remotely, but you can have specific goals or like Dr. Abulaji said, milestones. So for example, if you're doing a literature review, I expect you to have reviewed 200 articles by the end of this week. Okay, next week I expect to see you know, so many pages of an annotated bibliography. So it's less on the actual time, but more on the task. So these are the things that need to be done this semester. And I have expectations every week. I'm either meeting with you or I'm expecting to get a report from you. I don't know if that helps, but that's what we do. We make it more task specific, less concerned about the time, because that's very, very hard to monitor, especially if they're not on campus, and more specific to the task.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Okay, the number 3 thing you need to do for effective mentoring, you know, because there are students, when they fail at first, they get scared, and that can set in like setbacks, you know. So there are different kinds of setbacks that they will come across. And so that they won't get discouraged, we need to motivate the student as mentors. So when setbacks are part of the standard research process, How do you do that? In my some of the opinion I have is that, you know, you explain that technical hurdles, disproven hypotheses, and dead ends are normal in doing research, because some of them get frustrated. You will also need to emphasize lesson learned from the setback, how it can inform future work. Then you model for students how they can manage setbacks. That's when, you know, setbacks are part of the standard research process. What about if the setback are due to the student error? This one can be really devastating for them. But I say you identify where the mistake was made. You know, keep a forward-looking attitude instead of, you know, reprimanding them or show that you don't care. That might not help at all. We keep attitude, you know, that's how the student can do it differently the next time. Also, you utilize other undergraduate or graduate students that have similar skills in the particular research that you are doing to be able to work with this particular student that made the error. In that case, that physiological first level, they are associating with their peers, and that might help to motivate the students. Then you review your communication plan with the students so that you can be able to catch the mistake every time. So acknowledge what students are doing well so they feel motivated to learn more. And I saw this adage that nobody is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, but some mistakes will teach you great lessons and make you a better person. So if we let them know that, it will motivate them and erase setbacks. So next. Okay. This one, to make mentoring effective, you need to incorporate routine checks for understanding and catching misunderstanding early in life, in the life of the mentorship. And what are the strategies you can try in this? I will let people suggest this. What strategy can you use to catch areas of misunderstanding early, so it doesn't become, you know, significant problem? Anyone? Okay. If we don't have anyone, some of the strategy you can use is like have your student write out a research procedure plan for the research and review the plan with them for areas that seem less certain. Then ask students to send you a weekly email update with a summary of what they learned that week, any obstacle they encounter, and also what they are planning for next week. That will really help you to catch any kind of misunderstanding on the research process. Then have your student to explain even their research to, you know, others. You know, maybe if you are doing classroom projects, this will be really good. Or you have a colleague that you're doing similar, you know, research. You can ask your student to, you know, explain to the colleague so that the colleague might catch any kind of misunderstanding on time. Any question on this to discuss so that we'll be able to understand better what to do on the routine checks to catch misunderstanding? Anybody?
This is Judith. I just wanted to add to what you said. I think another thing that is quite important is the fact that if we allow the students to set their goals. I believe so much in setting goals in anything one is doing in life, the long-term goals and the short-term goals.
Good.
And as a mentor, you always like let them have it written down. And then when you want to catch these areas of misunderstanding, sometimes you can tell them, bring up those goals you wrote down some time ago. And when you cross-check it, you ask the person, okay, are you going in line with what you've written down here? And if not, you check the balances where the person is having some shortcomings, and that could help also.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or strategy to apply? Okay, we move to the next point. Okay. This next point to make your mentoring effective has to do with how students perceive whether they have the ownership of the research or they are able to think independently. Some students came up with the fact that, oh, the mentor asked me to do this, but he came up again and said, this is what I should do. I'm confused, So this can create problems that might not make all our efforts of mentoring, very effective. So what are the questions that you need to consider in order to let the student see that he or she is part of this with you, is collaborating with you, whether your the support is coming from your grant or is coming from our office. How can you how can you make the student feel and be able to think and express the thoughts to the mentor? What are the questions that you need to ask the student to be able to feel that? Anybody can anybody highlight on that?
Grace, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think what you said earlier about the two-way communication, I think that is going to be critical in order for them to have a sense that this is a space where they can openly share their thoughts and grow to a place where they can think independently about the research projects. So I think that two-way communication is critical.
Good. Okay. To clarify this further, mentor can ask the student where the student continue to need support. At least they will be able to think that through and also communicate that with you. You can ask whether the student, is ready for a challenge. I know some students are competitive and they really want to be challenged. That will move them further to be able to think independently. And when they find solutions, they feel good that, oh yeah, I did this. And then what is a realistic and meaningful level of independence to be expected if you make that known to the student too? It will really help them to think. And in doing research, we talk about critical thinking and problem solving. If we mentor students to be able to reach that level, we make all our efforts to be effective. And then when you ask students, what is the next step, in this research process, let the student think. So those are some of the questions that we need to ask students, So they will feel like, they are really getting hands-on on this. I have some students that personally come to my office and they were happy that they were exposed to this kind of, because they were able to think and see reason what they were not able to do before, and it's with the help of the mentor that they were able to do that. So these are some of the feedback that I get from students. So I know that many of our mentors are really doing good job. So, but like I said, just to remind us, these are some of the questions that we need to ask them to make them to think and to make them feel that they are ownership of the research that they are doing. Next. Okay, this one is getting to the top level where you address their professional development and their career development. So this is very important, especially when you've been mentoring students and you expect to see results. This is, motivating, will be motivating to the mentors themselves too. So professional development is rated the most important benefit for student researchers, and comes in form of networking opportunities that you create for the student, experiences working with other professional or any professional settings, and then gaining experience in public speaking and all that. I give examples for networking. If you let them collaborate, you have the interdisciplinary collaboration with your colleagues, but you are mentoring the student, they will see that and be able to see how to develop professionally, collaborating, working together as a team. All those are very important. And also when you talk about, experiencing working in a professional development, this has to do with like internship, like real programs. We have many industries that, like the DOD, like the NASA and all that, they came to our campus, and our department have the research day that we have the industrial part of it. When students are doing their research, we let them, showcase their research to these companies. And some of them got internship to go and work in the professional development, professional settings, which will really build them up. So these are the things that we look into. So to be able to achieve this with your student, what are the tips, you need to discuss with the students? One, I would say, what career options is the student considering? I take this example for the student I've been mentoring since 2017, Praise Benson. It seems like he was strange when I started with her. I was asking, what do you want to do? Well, what is your goal? What is your career option? Over the 3 years I've been working with her, she has changed so many times. But now it was so clear. It was so clear to the extent that she gained admission in 3 different universities for master's degree. And she has gone out to different, research settings. She has gone internationally also, and that would really help, is helping her, and she's aiming so high. So, and I know some of us, we've done that, but like I said, we're just reminding us that these are the things that you need to discuss with them. What experiences does the student have working in a professional setting? Let them, say it out so that you will hear. You will know that, yes, your mentorship is really having good impact on the student. And then, do they have questions about how to dress, how to send email and all that? Do you do they need you to write recommendation letters for them? All these are part of the relationship that will make your mentorship effective. And then, can you go to conferences with the students? I know some of us will do that, okay? So now we are in the question and answer section.
Grace,
and I would like each of us to participate in this. And if you have any other question, like I said, you can write it in the chat. But I have 8 questions quickly. The time is almost gone, so that we'll be able to answer them. So number 1, what are the most important skills research students should gain? Can I get answers from the mentors, please, or faculty members?
Or we can have them to write them in the chat.
Okay. Okay, let's write it in the chat. But if anybody wants to say anything, you can say too. So what consistent structures did you use to support student learning? And then how should you structure meeting duration, frequency with the students? All these questions are important. How do you deal with exceptional versus challenging students? An interested student but are late or no show often? I know many of us we've come across this. Then how do you work with students who struggle to write the academic language? How can you help students to stay connected with PVAMU cohort after graduation? And then how can you deal with excited, hardworking students, but they are bad at certain aspects of the field? And lastly, how can you find good students to work with if you don't teach a class?
I have a question, Dr. Bolaji.
Pardon me?
I have a question, please.
Okay.
How can we access this PowerPoint after the presentation?
Ms. Karen.
We are recording this PowerPoint presentation, and it will be available online. Thank you so much for asking.